without question, I spend more time on court with this young player than their parents do, between how much time they go to school, how much time there's training, and now, all of a sudden, they get home late at night. There might be an hour or two that mom and dad get to spend. I'm spending 24 hours a week with this player. So that's an impactful position that we have with these young athletes. And looking at that and what our roles and responsibilities are, it really comes down to what it really is the modern coach. So I want to dive in here, and let's take a look. And the question is, what really is the modern coach? Is there a modern coach? What does it really look like? Let's see if this looks like a little something like the modern coach. Maybe. Maybe.
With your hands. Contact in front. Good. Split, step. Split, step. Split, step. Split, step. Split, step.
Punch that ball. Just stick it. Yep, right there. Soft hands. Yes. No. Just lift it over the net. Little teeny tiny feet. Little teeny tiny. It doesn't listen.
Rapid fire. Low to high. Wrist low. Head high. Watch the ball. Do it faster.
So how many of you have seen, or I'll raise my hand, how many of you have been in a position before where you can hear yourself saying some of those things on court? It happens everywhere that I go. You see coaches that they, in some shape or form, fall into that category. And the question becomes, is that really truly the modern coaches? Can we do better than that? Absolutely. We can, and our role and responsibility out here on the court is so much more than being in our comfort zone. And I always like to call this is our home base here on the court. You see so many coaches where this just feels really comfortable. I'm going to put my basket here, and I can spend all day long here. It just feels like home. But there's so much more that we can do, so much more engaging that we can do with these athletes, taking a step away from the basket, understanding our communication, and really how we can impact these players' lives, whether we're talking about a junior up to an adult. So when we started thinking about this, the modern coach and all the different concepts that are out there and everything that's being said about tennis right now, everyone's always looking for what's the product of tennis? And me as a coach, how do I change the product of tennis? Well, I wanted to take a look at two businesses right now outside of tennis. They're in the sport and fitness industry, but they're two of the most successful companies. It's a pretty lengthy quote, but I just want you to take a second to read both of these quotes. So the first one that we're going to see here is Topgolf. How many of you have heard of Topgolf before? So Topgolf in the U.S. and it actually started over in Ireland, is actually the first location that they actually had. But Topgolf has taken the U.S. by storm. Golf, up until Topgolf came to the industry, or to the scene, golf was declining by 20% in some years. It was a massive decline. Well, guess what now? Golf, all of a sudden, and they actually attribute this to Topgolf, is on the rise. But if you look at this, and this is a direct quote from the CEO, and the question was, how would you describe Topgolf? The game can be played by anyone at any age, any skill level. It's extremely social and offers instructions, leagues, tournaments, children's parties, and themed events. It's inherently social and shareable experience because of the interaction, and the environment fosters the average group of 4 players. There's something for everyone. It sounds pretty close to tennis, doesn't it? Let's take one more look. Maybe that's just a fluke. So our next one's going to be Orangetheory Fitness. And again, Orangetheory Fitness in the U.S. has taken it by storm. It's the fastest growing fitness franchise on the planet. Last year they just grossed over $1 billion. It's massive, but this again comes from their CEO describing their company. What is their company? The personal touch and warm welcome is a key factor that keeps people coming back for more. People come to us because we guarantee results. Our technology allows each person to see their progress in real time. It's about building community rather than competition. A person, no matter what their fitness level, can succeed the first time they attend. It's not intimidating. All levels are catered to. Wow, that's pretty amazing, right? Is this tennis? This is tennis. Everything that both of these companies are talking about is exactly what our sport offers. So when we're looking at this, and I talk to so many coaches about, well, I've got to change who I am, and we've got to change the sport. The sport's it's not working as well as it used to. We've got to change the sport. The reality is, no, the sport, our hard product, the game, is fantastic. And all of these things that these incredibly successful companies now are capitalizing on, we've got at the tip of our fingers ready to go. So it comes down to, how do we as the coach, how do we create the success of these companies in the tennis industry today? And the answer is, and I'm going to keep coming back to it, it's us. We're the drivers. We have the resources, but how we create this environment, something that stood out really important to me is this: a personal touch and a warm welcome. My goodness, how important is it when you walk into a building and all of a sudden it's, hey, how are you doing today?
Fine.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here today. Thank you very much for coming today. All of a sudden, it took me a second, right? But what does he feel? Wow, they care that I'm here. That's amazing. It took me a second and a half, but it's a small detail that makes an incredible impact to the clientele that we're working with out here. So as we go into it, what makes a modern coach? So as we mentioned those last two companies, what are some different things that they do? And what are things that we as a tennis coach, we have an opportunity to really capitalize on? And we look at this, and the first thing is you have to be energized. All right, I'm coming out here early in the morning. Hopefully not a lot of you had too late of nights, but if I came out here and said, all right, everyone, today we're going to talk about the modern coach. It's going to be incredibly exciting, let me tell you. What are y'all going to do? You're all going to start to look, when is this guy going to get off the stage? This is terrible. Is this thing over yet? It's the same thing when we have our athletes out here on the court. The best example I was ever given is, think of yourself as a Broadway play. When people go to watch plays, they're purchasing a ticket because they want to see the show. They're excited about this. There's been a ton of time spent with these actors, actresses. They've put in the work, they've developed their skills, and they're ready to deliver an incredible product, which is the play. It's the same thing as us. When people are stopping at the front desk to sign up with a lesson with each and every one of you, what are they doing? They're buying a ticket to the show because they know you've done it. This young boy, young girl, adult male, adult female, they come on the court and they're all jacked up, ready to go, this is going to be awesome, I can't wait to take this lesson. And if the coach comes out and it's just, this is my 8th hour on court today. This is going to be a rough one. We'll just get through it. Let's do this. What do you think that player is thinking? Man, this isn't the experience. This isn't what I was hoping for. Maybe this isn't the sport for me, right? So it's being energized. Bring that energy every single time that you come to the court. Infectious personality. We're in the people business here. Making sure that you're comfortable connecting with people. If you're a person that is kind of reserved, standing back, really make an effort every day to go step outside your comfort zone, stretch your abilities, and go and introduce yourself to new people. Again, the more comfortable you are communicating and interacting with people, the better it is on the court. Because again, at the end of the day, we're in the people business here. We love people, we love being around people, we're social. And we want to create that environment where we create, I would like to hear the phrase, a sneezer effect. Meaning that our clients that are on the court with us, when they leave the court, they're leaving the court going, this is awesome. This is so good. Hey, are you going to come? You want to come to clinic next week with me? This coach was unbelievable. You got to come. They go out and they sneeze the good word left and right because you did such an incredible job, but your personality connected to that individual. So having that infectious personality, constantly improving. You all are doing that right now. It doesn't matter what level coach you have. And I feel very, very fortunate to be among the presenters that are here with us today. You look at just the history of these presenters that are here, it's unbelievable the experiences that they've had at every level. But guess what? They're here with us. They're doing the same thing. You're seeing them spread out, all of them are on their laptops, they're taking notes. Learning is never an end to when we're in this sport. We're always constantly seeking out new ideas, new trends, new ways of approaching working with our athletes in a successful manner. We're lifelong learners, and it needs to be that way. And then the final thing, which we're going to expand on here, knowledge, skills, and behavior. So the knowledge piece is what we're pretty comfortable with. This is what we're doing right now. We're gaining new knowledge. How do we help players hit a better forehand? How do we help players hit a better serve? What are the tactics that go along with it? The knowledge for coaches, that's the easy part, okay? But we're going to expand a little bit more on what about our coaching skills and our coaching behaviors. The three of those make up what we like to call our coaching capacities. And what does that actually mean? What are those coaching capacities? Because this is really what's going to take us to the next level here. So I'd really like you all to take a few minutes here and take a look at the coaching knowledge, and hopefully everyone can see this. Take a look at the coaching skills and take a look at the coaching behaviors. As you're observing these, and really be objective when you're going through this, talk to yourself and say, look, I know if I'm talking about the emotional and social skills to develop different ages, I'm not comfortable with that. That's not an area of comfort or confidence here. But I know the process of skill acquisition and development, man, I'm a rock star on that. I've got that, I own that. That's something I'm really, really comfortable with. If you're going through this and really being truthful with yourself, this is your roadmap for developing yourself as a more successful coach, because it's going to identify areas when you're seeking out new information that's going to help to reinforce and build, whether it's your knowledge, your skills, or it's your behaviors. If we look at this, and one of the ones that I'm quite passionate about is, and it's going to bring this to life next, is how do you observe? How do you analyze? How are you generating and giving feedback to your athletes? How are you explaining different things? The communication aspect of our industry and our sport that we're working in is so vitally important. And there's, as I mentioned, we're going to bring that to life here next. But as you're going through this, take some time to take a look and talk to yourself as to what areas you'd really like to spend more time. The communication with players and parents, I'm going to take a quick side note here because it's something I'm personally very passionate about and something as most coaches we're not comfortable with. And that is, we've got a lot of things to say, right? Our brains are filled with a lot of knowledge. We always know the answer. How many of you have found yourselves in a position where you ask your athlete a question, you know the answer, and you're just waiting to, hey, what do you think about the forehand? What would be better there? And you give them a split second to answer, and you go, okay, yeah, it should be that there's a longer finish to that stroke. I really encourage you all, get comfortable with the silence. It's an uncomfortable piece for us as the coach because we always have the answer in our minds, but it's going to surprise you tremendously if you give your athletes time to think about it and reflect. So when you ask a question, when that silence hits and everyone starts to panic, let it go. Let your athletes be in that silence and bask in that silence a little bit because it's amazing the response that will develop. I know you know the answer, and we want to give the answer to our athletes, but give them time to generate that answer on their own rather than jumping right in, okay? So the question is, these are great, but how do we truly bring these areas to life? We have a new process now that we've just introduced, and it's worked incredibly well. And you're going to say, well, Brian, this isn't new. I've seen the hourglass for years and years and years and years and years. It's the hourglass, absolutely. So we're not going away from open, closed, open. That is 100% still intact. But here's where the biggie really comes into play. Observe. How many of you, who wants to take a step into the deep end right now? Who wants to explain, how do you observe? Who can tell me, when you observe, what's going through your mind in terms of a process of observing? Generally happens that way, right? Observing to all of us is, well, I'm just watching the player and then let's go. There's nothing too complicated with it. There's actually a really cool process that we can go through so we observe effectively. Analyze. How do we analyze? Again, what's going through your mind as you are analyzing? What's your process? Do you have a process in place? Generating feedback. Rather than, as I just mentioned, us going out and us giving all the information, how do we generate this feedback from our athletes? How do we really get them and cultivate them to give us some feedback and really build off of? We preach and preach and preach in coach education. We want to be coach-centered or athlete-centered coaches. Yes, we want to be athlete-centered coaches, but to do that, that means we need to make this a two-way street of communication, generating that feedback from our athletes. Explaining. How do you explain your activities? We're going to get to something pretty fun with that. And the final part is demonstrate. So as you're looking at this, yes, it's open, closed, open, but we're going to go a lot deeper with this. So let's start here. Come on, there we go. All right, so how to observe. I asked the question, if you had to explain how to observe, what would it be? So every one of our steps, we have the 4-step process. So when you're observing, what does that actually mean? Well, it means we're going to take a look at the whole action. So often, and raise your hand if you've ever found yourself in this position. Your observation consists of, all right, players, let's go service line to service line. They take 2 hits and you go, oh, they missed one in the net. I've got it. We're going to work on your foundation. Yeah, your footwork's a little off today, but we're going to work on your foundation. You haven't even given them a chance to get into the full action yet to see, is this something that's happening on a regular basis, or was it just a fluke? So when you truly are observing, give your athletes time. Look at the whole action. 1 or 2 shots is not going to dictate if that's something that really needs to be addressed with your athlete. Once you've looked at the whole action, let's break it down and focus on one part or phase of coaching. So if we're talking about ground strokes, yeah, we've had an opportunity to take a look at the forehands and the backhands. We've observed what's going on. What does the forehand look like? What does the backhand look like? What does the movement look like? What's the recognition like? All right. Yeah, the backhand's looking pretty solid today. Let's take a deeper look now at that forehand side. We're going through this observation process. Observe from different angles. This one I love, right? And again, any of these things that I do, it's never a knock on a coach. It's just who we are. How many of you have seen baseline to baseline, you've got 2 players hitting, and what does the coach do? I assume the coaching position. We are really, really good at doing this. This is comfortable, this is our home base, and we're watching. I can't see everything from here. There's a reason when you watch sports on TV, how many of you are soccer fans, football fans? How many different angles do you have when you're watching soccer, football? Multiple, right? Why do they do that? Because if all you had was one camera angle the whole time, A, it's going to be boring. B, you're going to miss things. You're not seeing all the different action. Sports have multiple camera angles because you're seeing different things from different viewpoints. It's the same thing for us when we're observing. Move around. Be that 360 coach. The more that we're comfortable being that 360 coach, it's amazing what we're going to be able to observe. And again, observing several times without judging. Again, that gets us into, yeah, let's take a look, but let's make sure this is actually a trend and not just a one-time occurrence. Analyze and make decisions. And I'm going to buzz through these pretty quick because we're actually going to get active here in about 2 minutes. So I'm not going to keep you all sitting this morning. So when I analyze and make decisions, compare your observation with your perfect practice, your perfect good picture. How do we generate our perfect good picture? Everyone in the room here knows the technical parameters. I know every stroke, I'm going to have what does their stance look like? What does their grip look like? What does their shape of stroke look like? What's their contact point look like? And what does their finish look like? I know all the technical parameters that need to be in place. That's my perfect picture. But now I need to go through and say, I'm watching, I'm observing, but what are the matches in that perfect picture? All right, stance looks pretty good. Grip looks pretty good. Shape of stroke looks pretty good. Contact point, that's pretty late. So what have I just done? I've identified the mismatches. So I'm looking, yep, this is matching up, this is not. And then it brings me with my analyze, now I've got a decision to make. Am I going to work on that today? Is that the priority today? Am I going to hold tight on it and just wait and, we're going to address that at a later time? Or it's not a priority, it's not affecting, it's efficient and it's effective, it just may not look like the way I'd like it to look. But it's effective and it's efficient, so we're going to leave it. So we analyze. And then we go into the big part, providing feedback now. Again, once we've done this, what's the general thing that happens with us as coaches? We get the player in, or we're across the net, and we're like, all right, yep, you're doing great. We're going to work on your forehand now. It's, the forehand's a little bit late. Here's the drill that we're going to go into. Is that coach-centered or athlete-centered? It's very coach-centered, right? I don't even care what the athlete thinks. I'm telling them exactly what they're going to do because I know it all. No, the first thing that we need to do is let's ask the athlete. Before I give any feedback at all, we've just had an opportunity to observe these athletes. Let's bring them in, and rather than me diving directly into the deep end, let's see what they think. Hey, what'd you think of the forehand today? Anything different today? How did it feel? Let's get their feedback. You're going to be amazed at what they come up with. And the argument that I get from coaches is, well, Brian, that sounds great. That's a perfect world, but the reality is if I ask one of my players to do that, they're just going to sit in silence. They're not going to give me any feedback. Why? They've never had an opportunity to give feedback. We need to start putting these athletes in that position. So if that starts to go through our minds, they're just not going to talk. This is a process that we need to encourage. It's not going to happen overnight, but every little experience that we give these athletes to provide feedback is going to build more comfort and confidence as they begin to give the feedback. Limit your input to 1 to 2 key points. How many of you have seen the snowball effect? I was hoping there was going to be more snow here, by the way. So this is an easy winter, my goodness. The snowball effect is this. The coach comes into the net, and the coach goes, all right, everyone, we're going to be working on the contact point today. All right, once we get back to that baseline, I want all of you get in that good ready position. Have that nice, everyone should be in that semi-western grip position. When the ball's coming, let's get a nice unit turn. Let's go from a semi-open stance, have that nice shape of stroke. Let's get to that contact point. Oh, don't forget about the follow-through. You just gave them every piece of information that you have. You've unloaded on them. The first thing that the athlete hears and the last thing that the athlete hears with the feedback from you is what the intent is. And it's 1 ideally, 2 at the absolute maximum on the technical points that you're going to address or tactics. Give specific and simple information in a positive way. I was just talking to Oyvind yesterday, and it's amazing. The research now that's going into 9 to 1. There should be 9 positives before the athlete ever hears really, here's we're going to slide this little bit of a negative in. Here's what we need to address and improve. It's 9 positives now. It used to be down to 3 to 1. Now we're up to 9 to 1. That tells us a lot about how the athletes are processing information, right? And check for understanding. How many of you have been in a position where you give the feedback and you say, okay, does everyone have it? Everyone's got it? And every one of the players does what? Then they go to the baseline, they go to wherever the drill's going to start, and what happens? Hey, coach, what do you want us to do now? What are we doing? Oh, so check for understanding. Hey, can you explain what's the goal? What are we going to be focusing on today? If they can give you the feedback, we're great. We're golden. You know now you've minimized that time that it's going to take once they get back to their positions. Now it comes down to we explain what the drill's going to be. So we have an opportunity. This is very short. The explanation is literally, it's going to be a 2-ball drill. We're going to start 1 ball neutral at the baseline, work our recovery, and let's have 1 ball deeper. The focus is that contact point. Got it? Boom. Now we go into the demonstration. So often as coaches, we spend a lot of time on the explanation. It's too much. Less is more with the explanation. Let the demonstration do the talking. The more that we can give an effective demonstration, and I'll never forget this, how important it is for your athletes to see and they mimic what you do. The 2 best examples I have is the first one I did, and we always said in our workshops, when you're working with 10 and under players, it's so important because they copy exactly what the coach does. We always presented it, but never really realized to what level until I was working with my son on court, and I went up to him and I said, all right, Jags, we're going to work on your forehand today. So can you give Dad a little bit more shape on that backswing? It's going to look like this. Can you do it? He shows me. Are you ready? Yep. I get up and I go back and I start to give him a ball. What does he do? Gets right down on one knee. They mimic exactly what they see. So making sure that the demonstration is effective. It's looking exactly like you'd like it to look. It's the same thing on, we talk about when coaches go through a warm-up example, a warm-up demonstration. You know, and they're doing a lunge and the coach goes, oh, the players know how to do it. You know, everyone, we're going to go into a lunge, you're going to do this. And then the athletes go into the actual activity and you see them lunging like this and the coach is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Your knee's not supposed to pass that toe. What are you doing? What did you just demonstrate? And you're asking them to do something different than what you just demonstrated. So vitally important that your demonstration is effective. It's to the point and it's exactly what you would expect or want to see from a quality standard from your athletes. Take the time to do these demonstrations. Last thing is, check for understanding before they go practice. Again, ask the questions. Can you describe what are we going to be going into? What is this? So we've went through a lot of the theory portion. Let's bring this to life. Everyone's looking a little bit too comfortable in the seats. It's early in the morning, so we're going to have some fun now. And here's the fun. We're going to go into a group project with this, and we're going to bring this thing to life. Because again, in order to be the modern coach, we need to really, truly put this into action. It's great to talk about it, but if we can't put it into action, it doesn't make any difference at all. You're going to have 3 minutes to do this, just to make sure that I do not go over on my time here. 3 minutes, but here's the deal. We're going to jump into groups of 3. One coach is going to be identified as the coach. I'm going to coach, okay? The coach that is decided, or that you decide, I'm the coach, bring your phone with you, because you're going to be recorded with your own phone, so it doesn't go anywhere else but to you. Here's why. The importance of reflection. We're going to go through this whole entire observe, analyze, generate, and give feedback, explain, provide a demonstration. But you're going to be recorded as you introduce to your group how to juggle. Okay? The video is important because, again, how are you as a coach, and how many of you have taken the time to reflect and look at your coaching delivery skills? Hey, was I energized? Was I excited? Did I take time? Did I ask questions? What did I do here? It's a great opportunity for you to reflect on your own personal performance. So groups of 3, one is the coach, one's going to be the athlete, and one's going to be the filmer, okay? We're going to take 3 minutes. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to get organized. Spread out all around here. There's balls laid out here. And again, 2 minutes active period right now. You have the video to go back to. And again, when you go back to the video, really take the time to look at yourself objectively and say, hey, did I bring the energy? Was I energetic? Hopefully, we started the whole atmosphere off today with a lot of energy out here. You got out here, you're ready to go, and you dived right into it. So look at that from that first standpoint. Did you really make yourself energized and active? Number 2, did you connect with your athlete? Did you always see a smile on their face? Were they excited about what they were doing? They may have been concentrating hard, but did you see a smile? If you saw a smile, you know you're doing some really good things out here. And number 3, did you find yourself going through and trying to reference the process? Because again, if we're going through a process, the process is what's going to foster success. Did everyone take time to observe rather than diving in and saying, hey, this is how you juggle? Did you take a look at what are they even capable of doing? How do we know where they're at before we observe? So often, and that's why I love this activity, because if you know how to juggle, this is great because you want to get in and say, hey, this is how I juggle, this is what we're going to do. But reverse that. Let's see. We're going to work on juggling today. Let's see your juggling skills. Where are you at? And all of a sudden, we start to progress it based on who? The athlete. Everything is based around this athlete. So at the end of this today, really what I hope we were able to take away from the presentation today is, look, the future is incredibly bright with each and every one of us out here on the court. It all comes down to bring the passion, bring the energy, have a blast out here. My favorite time of the day is every time I get to step on court. Love it, hands down. This is my element, this is my environment. Anytime I'm between the lines, that I want to make sure that whoever I have contact with I create that memorable experience, that memorable environment. When it's all said and done in 6 months down the road, hopefully you're able to look back and say, hey, I remember that Brian guy had, he's kind of fun out there and had some pretty good stuff to say, and yeah, we're going to use that today. If you're leaving a lasting impact, that's what our responsibility is with these young athletes and these adults, okay? And the reason, and we look at, the famous Nick Bollettieri, there is a reason why I have him up here. We spent a lot of time with Nick this last year, and one of the things that Nick has really brought up a ton in the last few years is, and the point is so good, he comes up to me and he'll say this so often, he'll say, listen here, buddy boy, you make sure every time an athlete walks off the court, they always have a smile. If they don't have a smile, they don't leave the court. And it's so true. Every time you have an athlete on the court with you, you make sure that that athlete's leaving with a smile on their face, because a smile leaving the court means what's going to happen? They're ready to come back, okay? You all have an amazing opportunity ahead of yourselves. Keep up the fantastic work, and thank you very, very much for spending a little bit of time with me today. Enjoy the rest of the conference.